Hi there, I'm Thomas and I'm a third year astrophysics student studying at the University of St Andrews in Scotland. And if you're watching this video, there's a pretty decent chance you're considering a course that has a direct entry option. This is something that exists in Scotland but doesn't exist in the rest of the UK because normal Scottish honours degrees, undergraduate degrees, are 4 years long. And there's a very important reason for that, which I will explain a little bit before going on to whether I think you should do direct entry or not. So, the reason that direct entry exists as an option is because of the 4-year degree structure in Scotland. The reason for the 4-year degree structure compared to 3 years in the rest of the UK is that our offers for university are based on our Scottish Highers. They're about the level of an AS qualification in the rest of the UK, and they're sat in the 5th year of high school in Scotland, around the age of 16. Despite our offers being based on these exams, most people don't apply to university until after they have them. Most people apply in their S6 year, their final year of high school. In this year, most people are doing either more Highers or they're doing advanced Highers. And because a lot of people apply with Highers in hand, we get a lot of unconditional offers. This is despite the fact that we're still studying advanced higher qualifications. But that doesn't really explain why direct entry is a thing. Surely if we've got a 4-year degree structure, we should just be starting in year 1. Well, the reason that direct entry is a thing is because that first year of university tacks on to the end of the higher course, not the advanced higher course. Now, that doesn't mean everyone with advanced Highers should be doing direct entry. I will explain all of that a bit later. The reason direct entry exists is to give people the option who have advanced Highers or A-levels coming from the rest of the UK to skip the first year of university and do a Scottish degree in the same amount of time as a comparable degree would take in the rest of the UK. This means that with direct entry, the normal Bachelor of Science degree will take 3 years in Scotland like it does in the rest of the UK, and an integrated master's course like the one I'm doing will take 4 years, the same as the rest of the UK, rather than the 5 it would normally take. Typically, people applying with advanced Highers or A-levels will be able to access the direct entry option to start university. But it's not quite that simple. I think in a lot of cases you can have other subject requirements. For example, at St Andrews, to do a first year entry, you only need an A-level in maths, whereas to do direct entry, a further maths is very much encouraged. I'm not sure if it's entirely mandatory, but it's definitely encouraged. But first year isn't just to be dismissed because you have the qualifications to do direct entry. There are a lot of reasons you should still consider both options. There are advantages to both. First year entry has the advantage of the flexible degree structure that Scottish universities have. This is something unique to Scotland, at least in the UK, in that you can study subjects other than your degree subject in the first 2 years. This means that you can study 3 different subjects equally in your first year, and if you discover that the one you applied for, say you applied for maths, isn't the one that you really want to do, you've discovered you really like physics, you can change because you have this extra year to get the prerequisites to continue later on in that course. First year entry is also a more relaxed entry to university. Something that I think is really underrated about it is that this is the first time that most people have moved away from home. They're living away from their parents, living with new people that you've never met before you arrive at university. And that's a big shift. Personally, I think that that first year at university is really good for getting used to how learning at university is compared to learning at school. I also think it's a really good way to spend a year just maturing as a person, because me going into second year was very different to me going into first year. I've grown a lot in that year. And you form the relationships that you will rely on later in university. These are things that I think first year entry offers because it's a more relaxed entry. The grades you get don't impact your degree classification and they don't determine whether or not you get to progress to honours or a general degree. You do still have to pass, don't get me wrong, but it's less stressful and it gives you time to sort of develop any skills you're lacking before going into second year. That being said, there are some big advantages to direct entry, and one of the biggest is cost. This is especially true if you pay tuition fees, which I know a lot of people do because a lot of students come from the rest of the UK. In Scottish universities, tuition is free to Scots or people living in Scotland, but it is not free to people from the rest of the UK. The option to skip a year and save 9 grand in tuition fees, as well as however much your maintenance loan is for a year, is a massive factor. Even if you're not paying tuition fees, it's one less year of maintenance loans. So cost is a big thing to consider. There's also something to be said for the fact it gets you straight in with new content. First year entry will retread a lot of material from advanced higher or A level, just taught in a different way. For example, my first mechanics lecture in first year, we went through something that was relatively familiar. It was the Suvat equations for equations of motion. And we got to the end and the lecturer just said, yes, I know you're used to these notations. We know this, and we're doing it this way anyway, because they'd completely changed everything. This is something I think is kind of underrated, is that first year gives you time to get used to how your subject is taught in terms of academia rather than school. But direct entry does mean that you get straight in with brand new content. You're not retreading much old ground. That does mean that it is more academically stressful, so you do have to kind of hit the ground running. But if that's something you're really interested in and you just want to get straight in, new content, let's get through this degree and learn new stuff, then yeah, it's a really good option. There is also the fact that it shortens your degree time. If you're coming from Scotland, that means you get into the workplace or whatever postgraduate study or whatever it is you want to do after university, you get there a year sooner. If you're coming from the rest of the UK, you get to enjoy university in Scotland without having to delay the rest of your life by a year. This is something that matters to some people, and it's a valid thing to think about. So, which one did I pick? Now, I'm pretty sure you've probably figured this out from just me mentioning things on the way through. For me, it had to be first year entry. And I have a few reasons for that. Firstly, the cost. I am Scottish, I don't pay tuition fees. This is a big factor, and it is something that does sometimes make the decision between first and second year entry for people. I'm also aware that I'm very lucky. My parents saved my entire life to be able to have enough money to help support me through 5 years of university to do an integrated master's course. And I appreciate that is a very, very privileged position to be in. So that's why I wasn't too worried financially about doing this extra year. But cost was not the only thing. It wasn't just that I wanted to spend another year at university and pay a bit more money for it. I also wanted the flexible degree structure. When I left high school, I left with the grades to do direct entry. I had the advanced hires that I needed. However, there's a difference between having a grade and feeling confident in that subject. To this day, I don't know how I got an A in advanced higher maths, because I left that exam convinced I was not getting that. I did not feel I understood the maths sufficiently. So for my extra options in first year, I filled it with extra maths modules. I took the notoriously difficult pure and applied maths module in first year, and I took a course in stats, something that, although I don't use directly all the time, it's really helped both my understanding of statistical significance in science, but also my sort of general scientific literacy, being able to understand when statistics are being used a little suspectly in reporting, for example. I also wanted that less stressful introduction to university. I was moving away from home. More than an hour's drive from home, I would be moving into halls, living with people I'd never met, and that, I will admit, was a bit scary. Exciting, but scary. And I think having that extra year to make friends, and these are friends that I'm still friends with. They're some of the best people I've ever met. And I'm really glad I had that extra year to get to know them. And then there's the thing that I always forget about until right at the end of this list, when anyone asks me about first year entry or second year entry, is that I'd never studied astrophysics before. In high school, you get small sections on astronomy in higher and advanced higher, but they're not that big. And most of it is used as an excuse to explain like rotational mechanics and that sort of thing. Studying astrophysics at university is something different, and I hadn't done it before. I didn't know if I'd like it. So I didn't want to put myself in a position where I wouldn't be able to pursue something else. Yes, if I'd done direct entry into second year astrophysics, I could still have gone on and done a physics degree, because it's an add-on, it's not something that replaces the physics modules. But it would have ruled out other options. I couldn't have done a joint degree with maths if that's something I discovered I really wanted to do. And I'm quite glad that I did the first year entry, even though I ended up doing astrophysics. I love astrophysics, I love doing it, but I'm glad that I took that extra time to fill the gaps in my maths and to actually try astrophysics without needing a really good grade to get onto the master's course. So, personally speaking, I would advocate in favour of first year entry if you can afford to do it. But there are so many reasons why you would completely ignore me. Maybe you can't afford to spend an extra year at university. That's entirely fair, go for it, do direct entry. Maybe you're entirely certain that you want to study this subject that you're going to do. Go for it, do direct entry. But if you want a more relaxed start to university, or you want just that extra time at university learning to be a person away from your family, I'd recommend first year. However, don't take my word for it. Speak to students at the universities you're applying to, speak to the staff at the universities you're applying to, find out more about how hard direct entry is at the university you're applying to. I know that in physics at St Andrews, it's not that big a difference. In fact, there's really no measurable difference on average between the direct entrance in a given year and the first year entrance. So, that's the reasons that you might want to choose direct entry or you might not. If you liked this, please hit the like button, subscribe and hit the bell icon so you don't miss future videos. And if you have any questions about St Andrews, physics at St Andrews, astrophysics at St Andrews, or university life in general, I can try and answer that too. Please put them in the comment section below. In the meantime though, I've been Thomas Rintoul and I will see you in my next video. See ya!